Black men are often stereotyped as lazy, simply not willing to work, to rise up out of poverty. What's your response to that stereotype as it relates to our community, families, relationships, fatherhood?
How dare anyone say that? 300 plus years show you we're not lazy. You look at the things we've achieved. We've worked for free for over 300 and some years. We're not lazy. That's the wrong word to use for us. There's nothing we can't do. We navigate by the stars.
Welcome to the Black Man's Voice. We want to share with you experiences that some Black males and other men of color may have in the workforce with how and what will it cost to assist him in overcoming present-day atrocities. I'm LaRhonda Bennett, and today we have some amazing guests to discuss the voice of the Black man. Get your young men and yes, your daughters together to watch as we unveil deep fears and aspirations from some of the most influential males in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is our hope that you will gain great insight on how to move forward as you engage with the men in your lives. David, what is the most difficult thing about being Black in America?
I think one of the many challenges of being Black in America is like sustaining family and deciding what family is as Black people. We are a subculture of white culture. And something that hurts to say, it hurts to hear. And so if we think about many things that we do culturally, it's out of trauma, it's out of survival. But that doesn't mean it's ugly. It means it's beautiful. However, a lot of the customs and things that we have that we look at as cultural are just maladaptive behaviors that we probably should change, or we don't even know how to change. And so a lot of things we are inherit from like post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? We inherit these things and then it becomes us and our culture. It becomes our identity. And one of the things that I think is very challenging as being Black in America is like, what are our universal milestones? And there's a lot of different programs out here that talk about rites of passage. And many cultures, many races here in America, they have that. And it's funny when we try to create that, we are looked at as like antagonists.
Why do we need that?
Right. And my response is, why do you have that? And one of the challenges is becoming great, despite. Like becoming great, like holding ourselves accountable to our greatness, and that's which is accepting our past, believing in our present, and then redesigning our future. Another thing is that's challenging is primarily as a Black father is like accepting the risk of being a father or a parent in general. Like once you have a child and you have a partner, your identity changes, and you have a choice to accept those challenges. And one of the challenges is looking at as a Black father, when you have children and you have a wife or partner, you have to become a dangerous person, right? I think you have to, or you have to look at things in the sense of like, I'm here to protect and provide for my family by any means necessary. And the scary thing for me is, what does that look like? Like I've been in situations where, at home, I'll hear a loud noise or a gunshot. Everybody looks to dad. Like, Dad, yo, what was that? And so I clear the kids out, tell the wife's gonna be okay. But I am still in fear, right? You know what I mean? Like I still have fear. I'm still afraid. It's not that I can't show like weakness, or not weakness, but fear to my family, but that's not the time to show fear to my family. So I have to be at this level of protection, and that's scary, that's dangerous, and that's a huge challenge because all of the experiences that we have as Black men and women, Black boys and girls, because everything's a threat. As one of the challenging things in America being Black, everyone is a threat. And it's kind of sad to feel or think that. However, That's the unfortunate thing. So.
Okay, very true. You've done a really good job of describing that hindrance related to being Black in America. How has being Black in America benefited your life?
Well, that's the thing. Like, look at our story. There's no people in this world who has the exact story that we have, right? Where, like, one of the craziest longitudinal studies in the world is the survival of the Black American race. And I take pride in that. Like, literally, think about this. Like, despite this place that originally was not our home,
right,
we made it our home. And so you can't, the funny thing about it, because of slavery, you can't tell us to go back to Africa. You can, but this is our space, right?
Right.
Black pride, is I have such a pride. I'm so prideful in being Black because, again, my experience is very unique to any and everyone. The same stories those are my stripes. Those are my rites of passage. Like the Joker in one of the Batman movies said, "You know how I got these scars?" And every Black person can have a story. You know how I got these scars? That's kind of like our rites of passage, right? You look at the things that break many Black people down is not really the chronic racism. It's the reprieve, like, yo, I need a break. That's what breaks us down, right? But like, we face adversity, and therefore we have a level of resilience that's not matched by anyone. So if you think about the things that occur to us, like stock market crashes, man, I've been Black. School shooting, man, that's tough, but I'm Black. Like, being Black in America is equally scary, challenging, and beautiful at the same time. It's crazy. It's such a beautiful experience because it's just, I'm done rambling. I can go on forever about like the wonderful things and the reasons why being Black in America is great.
That resilience.
No one else has it like we do.
Yeah. You touched on this a little earlier. Black men are often stereotyped as lazy, simply not willing to lift themselves out of poverty. What's your response to that as you think about yourself in relation to community, in relation to family, in relation to fatherhood?
Lies. Statistically speaking, you look at, I don't know the actual numbers, but Black men spend the most time with their children than any other race in America. Literally. Black, you think about the foundation of America, that blue collar working, that's Black, those are Black men and Black women. So like, those propaganda is real. That goes back to that stereotype threat, right? Like, if you tell a group of people you're lazy, you don't take care of your kids, you don't want to work, what happens? Well, you're right, I am lazy. I don't want to take care of my kids. I don't want to work. Those things become true. And that, going back to what the previous question, like being a challenge, that's a huge challenge. And so those are lies. And there's no truth to that. There are individual cases where you have to go a little deeper. You got to ask, well, why?
Right.
Why isn't his father involved in his family, with his family? Why is he having challenges of unemployment? These are all symptoms from a larger issue, which is systemic racism. And systemic racism is hard to see, in action, but it's there. We know what it is. So, and I don't want to make excuses to like individuals' behavior or their individual choices not to do X, Y, Z, because that does exist. Right. However, the vast majority of Black folks, Black men, Black women, Black children, look, man, we work differently. Like, think about this. I bet you have a full-time job, or you had one person had a full-time job and you had a hustle, right? And most Black folk have a hustle job and a career. Yes. And working on a business by 35, which is crazy. Think about this. So it's about access. Like, if you aren't giving me access, we got to create our own. Yes. Yes. And when we create our own, it grows slowly. Slow and steady wins the race. We get there. So. Lies. That's, I guess, my response to that. Okay. How important is it for mothers to share with their sons about interactions with the police at some point? I don't want to put that ownership on mothers.
Okay.
You know, like.
Can you talk about why you wouldn't want to put that ownership on just mothers?
Because it's a father's role.
Okay.
I don't know. Simply put, I feel the mother's role is any event that there's a tragic situation or uncomfortable situation, you comfort and teach. Father teach, then comfort. But because I speak from that perspective because that's how it was in my family. My father was retired law enforcement.
Okay.
He retired from law enforcement twice. And so I got all that education from my father. I remember being pulled over. I'm on the phone. I called my dad right away again in Minnesota. I called my dad right away. And he's like, all right, don't argue with him. And I'm upset. I'm upset. He was like, nope, it's not your time to argue with him. I said, man, Dad, it's like 8 police officers and a K-9 unit. He's like, nope, don't argue with him. Your objective is to survive this moment. And it was crazy hearing this from my father, who's in law enforcement, who has traffic stops all the time. And his advice resonated with me. So I think we place too much responsibility on our Black women, and that's not a Black woman's job to inform our Black boys about how to act and respond. And it was crazy about that. So is that getting stopped by police, it should just be a normal experience, not necessarily a positive or a negative experience. But we know that's not the case primarily with Black folk. And so, and myself, like I've had multiple police stops where at first I was like, I had a positive experience. I went on Facebook, like, hey, had a positive experience. Was this police stop, and I just want to share it with the world. And I had to think about like, what the heck is this positive experience? Because the other thing I say, which is, so I'm going down a rabbit hole, and I'm gonna come right back. So because of these experiences, I decided like, I want to work for the Milwaukee Police Department. I was a 911 operator, and so I got trained in. It's very similar to police officers. You understand the system, you understand their why, and comparing my experiences of living in Minnesota, in a small town, and living in Wisconsin, in the city of Milwaukee, man, racial is not the same. Like, it's really not the same. And that's a whole other conversation to have, but it's just not, it's different. And so I've had normal experiences, and I had not abnormal experiences, or what would be the norm for a Black male or Black woman. So, yeah, just going back, I wouldn't put the ownership on Black women to have that conversation.
Okay. Well, you've definitely given us some insight in terms of experiences that you've had with the police, both positive and negative in terms of your encounters and how that's made you feel overall. So thank you for sharing that. In 2019, Milwaukee was considered the most segregated city stated by Brookings Institution. According to a new study, the University of California, Berkeley, reports show America's cities continue to be highly segregated, which causes negative outcomes, disparities for people of color. Okay, so Detroit is statistically the most segregated city as of 2020 in the nation. So how does this make you feel knowing that we've come so far, but yet we still face challenges in Milwaukee and across the nation regarding the disparities for people of color?
Milwaukee and Detroit battles between one and two. Right. So like so that's that first question, answer, or response rather. Here in Milwaukee, there are so many incredible agencies and programs to help shift the narrative of being the most segregated city in the country. However, there's more work to be done. I think it's okay to celebrate small victories, but and what's next? Let's go. And then also, here's the other thing. Segregation is really not the problem. Like that's a bold hot take, right?
Okay.
Segregation is the access is the issue. So think about Detroit, right? Let's look at what happened in Detroit, which is currently happening here in Milwaukee, gentrification. They shut down a part of the city and said, we're no longer giving you water. We're no longer giving you streetlights. We no longer give you transportation to this particular part of the city. So you need to move out. People didn't have the means to move out. They didn't have the opportunity, the access to move to another, closer to an area where it's more expensive. So what do? They stayed.
Right.
And I saw this 3 years ago. I said, Milwaukee is the next Detroit. And look what happened. And so what did Detroit do also? They built a new basketball arena. They have a new arena in a so-called debilitated city. But there's a lot of money in Detroit. We know that Detroit is a historic city, as is Milwaukee is a historic city. So here's what's happening. We have a lot of industry coming to a particular area in Milwaukee. The housing market is crazy. Renting is even crazier, or as crazy. And a part of the city of Milwaukee, rent isn't changing because gentrification.
Yes.
We want you to forward out there. So as we talk about disparities in the country, in Milwaukee, in comparison to Detroit, there's so much work needs to be done, and there's so much work that's currently happening. So I don't want to celebrate those victories, not celebrate those victories,
Right.
And not acknowledge the agencies and the organizations and the people power, the protests. Like, those things are incredible, and I'm not satisfied with that.
Okay. So given all that we've talked about, your life experiences as a Black man, do you believe that Black males would benefit from receiving therapy from a trained therapist to overcome some of the just mental anguish brought on by years of racism in America?
Yes, I mean, myself, I'm in school currently to be a clinical mental health counselor.
Okay.
Because I see the need. Especially our older Black men, our retired Black men. What I've noticed with my father, he's retired now, is that he's finally able to have conversations about things that happened when he was 5 years old, right? And so that right there was like, man, you can open up about this tragic, traumatic situation that happened to you in Marion, Arkansas, that you didn't receive treatment for, untreated trauma, right? The other thing is that I think it's okay to acknowledge the types of therapy that men that occurs with men, like the barbershop. We know there's a lot of barbershop talks, right? But the barbershop, I just came from the barbershop, and like we have an opportunity just to shoot the breeze where I am a shoulder to lean on for the barber, and equally, he's my shoulder. The other areas is like, where the outlets of playing sports or being involved in sports, even having, like, me and my father, like, a couple times a year, we drink some whiskey and just chop it up. That right there is therapy. So yes, absolutely benefit from trained therapists, and we need to acknowledge the other ways in which Black men are receiving and seeking out therapy, because that's another one of those challenges, is that when a Black man at times says, this is for me, the world, society says, no, it's not. But how can you tell me as a Black man what's for me? You can't do that, but it's done on the regular, so.
Okay. Thank you so much, David, for sharing your voice with us today. Are you able to stick around for a group discussion a little bit later?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.